Incredible moment, poor boy blows bubbles for autistic girl, millionaire dad discovers a heartwarming friendship. On a golden afternoon in a small American suburb, the sun released its warm embrace, illuminating the laughter of kids playing at the local community park. Among them was Jamie, a 12-year-old boy with bright eyes and an infectious smile. He came from a single-parent home where money was always tight, but Jamie always found joy in small things. Today, he was happily blowing colorful bubbles, each one shimmering like a tiny universe before bursting into nothing. They floated on the breeze like dreams, capturing his hopes for a better tomorrow. As he leaned over, focusing on the next bubble, he noticed her Sophie. She was sitting on a swing, her head drooped, fixating on the ground. Sophie was different, an autistic girl from a wealthy family, though her riches never shielded her from the isolation she felt. Jamie sensed her loneliness and approached, his heart full of that instinctive compassion only kids seem to muster. "Hey!" he called out, his voice bright with enthusiasm. "You wanna blow some bubbles?" He extended the colorful wand toward her, an invitation steeped in innocence. Sophie looked up, her large, expressive eyes wide with surprise. When she hesitated, Jamie's smile widened, showing all his baby teeth like a window into his bright spirit. The wand sparkled in the light, and in that moment, it felt like a precious key unlocking the door to a fragile friendship. As she took the wand, Jamie watched her face transform. Bubbles floated through the air, each one casting tiny rainbows in their wake. Laughter erupted as they chased the sparkling orbs, their worries momentarily fading, barriers dissolving in the summer sun. Blossoms of friendship bloomed, each bubble a possibility, each giggle a softening of the world's harsh borders, but as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows, Jamie felt a dark cloud looming over his life. His mother's job was shaky, and the weight of their financial struggles pressed down on his little chest. The future felt uncertain, its shadow creeping in closer with every passing day. Just as complications brewed in Jamie's world, a figure loomed nearby: Sophie's father, a stern man dressed in designer clothes. He watched their innocent exchange with cold skepticism, judging Jamie as if he were a threat to everything he held dear. He couldn't fathom the beauty in their simple joys, it felt like an erosion of status to him. Jamie's bright bubble wand and carefree vibe felt like a danger to Sophie's future. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined to change their circumstances, Jamie suddenly caught wind of a bubble-blowing competition at the park with a scholarship as the grand prize. The possibility swept through him like electricity. This could mean hope, not just for him, but for his mother as well. As he trained and sharpened his focus, Sophie stood by his side, happy to be part of something bigger, a friendship blossoming amidst the chaos. Yet the shadows grew longer, and tension charged the air as the day of the competition approached. One fateful moment would arrive when Sophie's father confronted Jamie, and their fragile bond would be put to the ultimate test. With the entire park watching, voices hushed and breaths held, the confrontation unfurled a delicate dance of vulnerability and honesty that might just change everything. Could their innocent friendship withstand the harsh judgments of the world? The stakes had never been higher, and as Jamie looked at Sophie, filled with both hope and trepidation, he questioned whether they could ever break down the barriers threatening to pull them apart. Jamie woke up the next morning, the sun filtering through his thin curtains, casting stripes of light across his bedroom floor. His heart raced with excitement as he recalled the upcoming bubble-blowing competition. The scholarship loomed in his mind like a beacon of hope, and he wanted to share that thrill with Sophie. He hurriedly got dressed, throwing on his favorite, slightly worn-out t-shirt that read, "Dream Big." As he ran down the stairs, the smell of pancakes filled the air, but he barely noticed. His mom was already in the kitchen, her hair tied back, a frown etched on her face as she studied bills scattered across the table. Morning, champ. She greeted him, her smile not quite reaching her tired eyes. Jamie leaned over to give her a quick hug, sensing the weight she carried. You ready for the big day? Yeah, I can't wait. He exclaimed, determination fueling his words. Make sure you don't put too much pressure on yourself, okay? She warned gently, a familiar concern creeping into her voice. Of course, Mom, he replied, but inside, he felt the pressure pulsating like a heartbeat. His family's future depended on this. After breakfast, Jamie raced to the park, bubble wand in hand, butterflies of anticipation soaring in his stomach. The sun hung higher now, enveloping everything in warmth and brightness. He spotted Sophie sitting on a bench, her fingers tapping rhythmically against her leg, lost in her own world. Hey, Sophie! He called, waving as he jogged toward her. Her gaze shifted, and a small smile crept onto her face. Hi, Jamie. Ready for the big day? I am, she said, but there was a hint of something unspoken in her eyes. He could sense her nervousness. The world could be a daunting place for her, especially with her father's strict expectations. They began practicing, taking turns creating massive bubbles, their laughter echoing in the crisp air. As the bubbles danced and floated, Jamie felt their special bond solidify. In that moment, nothing else mattered. But then, the atmosphere shifted. Sophie's father, dressed like he always was in a tailored suit and looking perfectly polished, appeared like a storm cloud. Jamie's heart raced as he recognized the anger in his gaze, ready to unleash a torrent of judgment. Sophie, we need to talk, he said, his voice dripping with authority. You shouldn't be wasting your time here. Sophie stiffened, her face dropping. But Dad, I'm with Jamie. We're practicing for what? He interjected, dismissive. That competition. You'd be better off focusing on your academics, dear. This boy doesn't belong in your world. Jamie felt the sting of those words like a slap. The playful atmosphere shattered, and tension thickened the air between them. Sophie's eyes flickered back and forth between her father and Jamie, confusion clouding her face. Wait. Jamie found his voice. Sophie and I are friends. We're just having fun. Sophie doesn't need friends like you. The disdain was palpable, laced with judgment. Jamie's heart sank. He glanced at Sophie, seeing tears welling in her eyes. The weight of her father's words crushed down on them both. Please, Dad. Sophie's voice quivered, and Jamie wanted to leap forward to comfort her, to protect their precious friendship from this onslaught. The moment hung there, fragile and tense, and Jamie felt the pressure building, the pressure of expectation, judgment, and the flickering hope of a bright future. Could their friendship really withstand this? The competition was approaching like an approaching storm. With everything on the line, Jamie clenched the bubble wand tightly, wondering how to face the battle that lay ahead, one not just about bubbles, but about breaking down barriers. As silence fell, the clock ticked away their precious time, and Jamie took a deep breath. Would Sophie choose to stand by him, or would her father's weight pull her away? The answer felt shrouded in uncertainty, but they were about to find out. The tension hung in the air, thick enough to slice through. Jamie shifted on his feet, feeling the harsh gaze of Sophie's father drilling into him. He could see the conflict churning inside Sophie. Her father stood tall, arms crossed, exuding a sense of finality that made Jamie's stomach twist. Dad, please. This is important to me, Sophie pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper as she looked between her father and Jamie, searching for support. Important? He barked, each word dripping with contempt. You honestly think a silly competition means anything in the grand scheme of things? Focus on your future, not this nonsense. There was a finality in his tone, a verdict that left no room for discussion. Jamie clenched his hands around the bubble wand, wishing he could block out the negativity. He wanted to scream that this wasn't just about bubbles, it was about joy, friendship, and a dream that could lift them both. A beat passed, and he risked a glance at Sophie, interpreting the flicker of hope in her eyes. It ignited something in him. He had to speak up not just for himself, but for her. I know it seems small, but this competition is a chance for us. It's not just about bubbles. His voice quivered slightly as he stepped closer, trying to command attention over the storm brewing before them. It's about believing in yourself and having fun. We can change how people see things, how they see her. Sophie deserves to be happy. Sophie's father narrowed his eyes, ready to retaliate, but Jamie pressed on. You may not see the value in it, sir, but this can be a turning point for Sophie. She lights up when she's creating bubbles, and it's because of that light that she can do amazing things. For a fleeting moment, Jamie watched the man falter, confusion crossed his face. But as quickly as it appeared, it vanished behind a wall of anger. You have no idea what she needs, he spat, glaring down at Jamie. You're not part of her world. As the words hung like a heavy shroud, Jamie squared his shoulders, refusing to back down. Maybe I'm not. But being part of a person's world is about more than money or status. It's about connection, and I want to be there for her. Sophie's father opened his mouth, ready to unleash another diatribe. But Jamie's fierce resolve finally broke through a crack in the man's facade. For an instant, they all stood in a tableau, suspended in the heat of a tenacious silence. Then, Sophie took a step forward, a small tremor of courage threading through her stance. Dad, I need this, she said, her voice soft but unyielding. Being with Jamie, he interrupted, disbelief contorting his features. You think this boy can help you? He's just a distraction. He's more than that. Sophie shot back, urgency spilling from her words. He's given me a place where I feel free. You've pushed me my whole life to be perfect, but I just want to be me. Jamie felt a rush of emotion hearing her words, branding them into his heart. He could only hope that her bravery would spark understanding in her father's heart. For what seemed like an eternity, Sophie's father wrestled with the truth staring him in the face. Was it possible he had been too rigid? Did he really want to strip away the joy from his daughter's life? But just as hope stirred, a darkness flickered in the older man's eyes. You will regret this, Sophie. The threat was subtle yet heavy, echoing with a finality that sent chills down Jamie's spine. Jamie felt the words shatter around them. There was no guarantee that Sophie wouldn't be drawn back into her father's grip. The competition was fast approaching, but it wasn't the only battle they faced now. The real challenge would be proving that their bond could withstand judgment and strife. Before he could gather his thoughts, Jamie whispered to Sophie, "You're brave. No matter what happens, keep shining. I'll always be here." Her gaze softened, a bright spot amidst the looming shadows. But a wave of uncertainty washed over Jamie. Would her father let her choose her own path? As they stood at that crossroads, the competition looming ever closer, Jamie felt a surge of determination. If they were to fight for their friendship, maybe it was time to show everyone what true bravery looked like. But as doubts crept in and time slipped through their fingers, he realized that it wouldn't just take courage, it would take miracles. Would they find the strength to break free? The day of the competition dawned bright and clear, the sun spilling golden light on the park where it was set to take place. Jamie felt a cocktail of excitement and dread swirling in his stomach as he stood beside Sophie, the bubble wand cradled in his hands like a fragile promise. Everything hinged on this moment. Sophie, wearing a bright red dress that swirled around her as she moved, exuded a nervous energy that matched his own. She had her hair tied back in playful pigtails, and for the first time in days, a smile tugged at her lips. Jamie took a step closer, and the warmth radiating from her made him feel anchored. "You ready?" he asked, trying to mask his own nerves. She nodded slowly, her eyes dancing between anticipation and fear. "I think so. But what if my dad shows up?" Jamie felt a chill run through him at the mention of her father. "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, it's just us and the bubbles." Moments later, an announcement crackled through the loudspeakers, calling competitors to the starting line. Jamie's heart raced at the sound, and he noticed dozens of people gathering around the park, eager participants and curious onlookers alike. It was a scene bursting with vibrant energy, colorful banners, laughter, children darting about with their own bubble wands. Sophie turned to Jamie, her expression suddenly serious. "What if they laugh at us? You know, the bubbles, it's not as cool as other things." He took her hands, grounding her with his steady gaze. "Bubbles are magical, sophomore. They float, they shimmer, they make people smile. This is your moment to shine. Just remember, it's not what others think that matters, it's how you feel doing it." The tension built as participants took their places. As they lined up, Jamie felt the intensity of their journey weigh heavily on him. Who knew that something so simple could carry so much meaning? The countdown began, and they exchanged a last look full of understanding and solidarity. When the buzzer sounded, Jamie and Sophie jumped into action, waving their wands like wands of enchantment. Bubbles began to float, glimmering in the sunlight, dancing on every breeze. People around them laughed, clapping as the bubbles spun and twirled, each one a burst of joy and laughter, a fragile orb of creativity in a world that could sometimes feel too heavy. But even amidst the burst of colors, Jamie felt a shiver of anxiety. Was Sophie's dad watching? Would he show up at the worst moment? Just then, from the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a figure tall and imposing, arms crossed, watching with an inscrutable expression. Sophie's father stood at the edge of the crowd, and worry etched itself on her face. Jamie squeezed her hand tightly, his heart racing. "Think about all the fun we're having. Focus on that," he urged, trying to keep her mind from spiraling into fear. Sophie took a deep breath, and with renewed determination, they poured their hearts into creating bubbles large and small, iridescent and fragile. Each successful float ignited cheers from the crowd, and Jamie could feel the energy surge, swirling around them like the bubbles they created. Just then, a loud cheer erupted as a particularly large bubble burst into a shower of glimmering droplets, captivating everyone. Sophie's laughter rang out pure and uncontained, and for an instant, it felt like all their worries vanished, but even as they reached their peak, Jamie's heart sank when he noticed Sophie's father moving closer through the gathering crowd. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over him. This was supposed to be their moment. Could her father snatch it away? Would he let Sophie stand in her truth, or would he try to pull her back into the shadows just when she was beginning to shine? As he looked at Sophie, joy shimmering in her eyes, his resolve hardened. They had to push through. They had to fight for every bubble, for every laugh. In that crucial second, when the world felt both expansive and small, Jamie remembered their mission wasn't just about the competition. It was about claiming their place in the sun together. But what would happen when Sophie had to face her father? Would they lose that bold spark that had just begun to ignite? As he turned back to Sophie, her gaze locked onto something far beyond the bubbles. Would their bond endure the ultimate test? Sophie's laughter echoed like music, lost in the whirlwind of bright colors and joyous shouts all around them. But that laughter didn't quite reach Jamie's heart as he felt the weight of her father's presence, like a shadow looming just out of sight. The crowd was cheering, the air was filled with the scent of summer and joy, and yet all he could focus on was the way Sophie's expression shifted, happiness mingling with dread. "Keep going," he whispered, catching a glimpse of those big, glimmering bubbles drifting away like little dreams set free. "You're amazing, Soph." But as the next wave of bubbles floated into the air, he couldn't shake off the feeling that the real challenge had only just begun. Her father was stepping forward, eyes locked onto his daughter, and Jamie's heart raced, matching the pulsing energy of the crowd. It felt like they were in a bubble of their own, suspended between bliss and a terrifying plunge into chaos. "Sophie." Her father's voice cut through the happiness, a sharp contrast to the laughter that had just erupted. "You shouldn't be wasting your time on this silly competition." Jamie's pulse quickened. He tightened his grip on Sophie's hand, willing her to stay rooted in this moment, to fight against the echo of her father's disdain. The crowd turned, quieting, the electric joy that had filled the park slipping away like that very first bubble, leaving only the hushed tension of confrontation. A flicker of hurt crossed Sophie's face, and in that instant, Jamie felt something shift. "This isn't silly," Jamie countered, stepping slightly in front of her. "Bubbles are not just fun, they're about feeling free. They teach us to dream, to rise above." Sophie's father raised an eyebrow, his arms folding tighter across his chest. "And what do you know about it, kid? You're just blowing air." The challenge in those words ignited something fierce within Jamie. "I know how it feels to watch someone come alive, how a single moment of joy can change everything." The crowd murmured, caught off guard by the fervor in his voice. "Sophie's not just here to blow bubbles. She's showing everyone, herself included, that she belongs." Sophie looked from Jamie to her father, hope slowly replacing the fear clouding her gaze. Jamie sensed her pulling strength from his words. Perhaps it was the warmth of summer lighting the fire inside her, the spark that encouraged them to press on. "Let her have her moment," he urged, softer now, hoping to find a shred of understanding in her father's expression. "What harm does it do to just let her be herself?" There was a beat of silence, a moment hanging in the air thicker than the bubbles they had created. The crowd watched, breath collectively held, enveloped in the tension radiating from the three of them. Then Sophie stepped forward, her brave little heart pounding in her chest. "Dad, I love bubbles. I love how they make people happy. I want to share that happiness." Her voice trembled but was steady, fueled by the energy of support that enveloped her. Her father seemed to falter, the tightness in his face wavering just for an instant. Maybe he didn't expect that kind of bravery from her. Maybe he had never seen the power of those innocent orbs. "But you know," Sophie interrupted, breathing deeply. "I'm not hiding anymore. Not from you or anyone." As those words settled in the air, a ripple of admiration surged through the crowd. Jamie felt a wave of relief, intertwining with pride. He had never witnessed such strength in Sophie before. The clapping started slowly, timidly, but soon morphed into a roaring chant of encouragement, everyone rallying behind her, behind them. Amidst this, Jamie felt hope bloom. But then he glanced back at Sophie's father, whose fists were still balled up. Would he embrace this shift, or would he try to pull Sophie back into the shadows again? Just then, a young girl with big brown eyes and a bubble wand of her own stepped forward. "Can I help?" she asked, her voice sweet and sincere, breaking the heavy atmosphere with the innocence of youth. As the corners of her father's mouth twitched in hesitation, maybe recognition dawning, Jamie wondered if this was the moment they had all been waiting for. Would they break free from their fears and insecurities? Would this little girl spark a change that could brush away shadows? As the crowd's enthusiasm swelled, Jamie looked at Sophie, now radiant and fearless. They were on the edge of something great, something that could change everything. But just as the bubbles began to fly higher, a deeper voice called through the crowd. "Sophie." Her father's tone, firm and questioning, echoed brutally, pulling them back perhaps deeper into doubt. Would they hold their ground, or would this be a tipping point that silenced all those dreams? Sophie stood tall, her tiny frame trembling with a mix of determination and uncertainty. The air felt electric, charged with anticipation. The crowd didn't just quiet down, it held its breath, watching, waiting to see what would unfold next. "Sophie, you're wasting your time." Her father's voice boomed again, each word a sharp dagger. The chill in his tone was palpable. Jamie felt his stomach twist, wishing he could block out those harsh realities. He could see the glimmer in Sophie's bright eyes darken momentarily. But then she looked back at him. There was an undeniable strength in her gaze now, a light that defied the looming shadow of her father. "This is what I want," she shouted, surprising even herself with the potency of her voice. A small wave of cheers erupted, infusing her with courage. "Guess what? Everyone loves bubbles, Dad." Sophie continued, her exuberance building, each word a lifeline tossed to the crowd. "They are magical. And they can help me share happiness, even if just for a moment." Jamie could see her father's expression soften for a brief moment, confusion flickering behind his eyes. Perhaps he was wrestling with whether to hold on tighter or let go. The crowd began chanting Sophie's name, lifting her up, forcing her father to reckon with their unanimous support. "I think you don't understand, Soph," he said, his voice wavering under the pressure of the moment. "They won't help you in the long run." With an edge of desperation, he took a step closer, but the distance between them felt wider than ever. "No." Sophie's voice cut through his words. "This is my moment. I won't let you take that from me." Her cheeks glowed with emotion, and Jamie felt pride swell in his chest. She was no longer just a little girl in her father's shadow, she was standing her ground, ready to embrace who she truly was. Then Jamie noticed the little girl with the bubble wand, who stood at the edge, still watching intently. She took a few steps forward and started blowing bubbles into the air, creating a swirl of color that danced in the sunlight. The adults began to chuckle, their tension easing as youthful joy reclaimed the moment. "Yeah. Let her blow bubbles." Someone from the crowd yelled, and others echoed the sentiment. "Bubbles for everyone." The scene transformed as people began to join in. They grabbed their own bubble wands or made makeshift ones from their fingers, and suddenly laughing children and their parents were blowing bubbles high into the air. The park filled with the shimmering orbs, reflecting the sun like tiny prisms of hope. Sophie's father stepped back, surveying the scene. The collective laughter, the vision of innocence floating through the air seemed to shift something deep inside him. But just as the warmth of change touched Sophie's face, doubt clouded her brow once more as she turned back to her father. "Please, Dad. Can't you see how happy this makes me?" The question hung heavy, a challenge not just to him but to the many adults in the crowd. Jamie's heart raced, aware that this moment held the power to transform everything around them. Would Sophie's father finally let his daughter be who she was meant to be? Or would he drag her back into the darkness of doubt he'd cast over her life for so long? With a final roar of laughter, a giant bubble floated up, capturing Sophie's father's gaze. It swayed, almost teasingly, as if asking him to let go of his fears and join in the joy around him. Would he crush it, or would he let it soar? As Jamie's pulse quickened, feeling the crackling energy of hope and possibility, he found himself leaning in closer, waiting for a decision that could change everything. Just then, the little girl's laughter rang out. "Bubbles are the best. Just like you, Sophie." And just like that, Jamie clutched Sophie's hand fiercely. They were on the verge of something monumental. Would they bubble up to new heights together, or would the weight of expectation bring them crashing back down? Sophie's heart raced, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. She could feel the warmth of support surrounding her like a cozy blanket, yet the chill of her father's disappointment lingered, a thorn in her side. The sky above seemed to hold its breath as the moment stretched, each second heavy with possibility. With every bubble released into the air, Jamie dared to hope that Sophie's father would understand at that very instant what she was trying to convey. A figure emerged, tall and confident, pushing through the crowd that now buzzed with curiosity. Dressed in a crisp navy suit, he radiated an air of authority and purpose. A hush descended as people turned to see who this newcomer was. With each step, Sophie felt the tension in the air shift. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" he called, his voice booming yet inviting. The crowd, already colorful with laughter and joy, seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of what was coming next. Sophie's heart began to race again, but this time with uncertainty. "Who is he?" she wondered, glancing at Jamie. She could see Jamie was equally puzzled, her brow furrowed in confusion. The man scanned the crowd, and when his gaze settled on Sophie's father, a slow recognition crept across his face. "Mr. Henderson." His voice softened as if addressing an old friend. Sophie's father stiffened but didn't answer, his expression a mix of surprise and apprehension. The man approached cautiously, his demeanor shifting to one of gentleness. "I'm Andrew Culver. I remember you from the charity event last year." Recognition flickered in Sophie's father's eyes, but it quickly faded into wariness. The two men exchanged pleasantries, but Sophie couldn't shake the feeling this encounter was about to turn. The bubbles floated serenely above them, oblivious to the brewing tension. "Do you have a moment?" Andrew asked, gesturing to the side, still keeping his voice low. "I'd like to talk to you about your daughter." Sophie caught Jamie's eye, confusion mingling with hope. She could sense something significant was unfolding, but the rush of emotions left her dizzy. What could Andrew possibly want to say about her? Talk about what? Sophie's father replied, an edge to his tone that sent a chill through her. Andrew took a deep breath, stepping closer, voice barely above a whisper now. "It's about the way you are handling her and frankly, about understanding who she truly is." The tension thickened like a storm cloud, a mix of fear and fury churning in Sophie's stomach. Was this man about to reveal something that would shift everything? "Please," Andrew pressed on, glancing back to take in the scene, the swirling bubbles, the laughter of children, joy bursting forth like fireworks. "Sophie has a gift. You need to see it." Something in Andrew's tone made Sophie's heart flutter with anticipation, but her father remained silent, the internal battle etched deeply in his features. As the two men spoke, Sophie felt the weight of the crowd keenly. Everyone was watching them, but her world was shrinking to just her father and Andrew. The remaining noise faded, and all she could hear was her pounding heart. Would this moment unravel her father's defiance? Would Andrew's words break the barrier that kept them apart? "Trust her, let her fly just like those bubbles," Andrew urged, and Sophie's breath caught in her throat. The air shifted as her father finally turned to face her, capturing the essence of doubt, fear, and a flicker of burgeoning understanding. But before Sophie could breathe a sigh of relief, something unexpected happened. Another gust of wind swept through the park, and the bubbles began scattering chaotically. Sophie grasped for Jamie's hand, her heart racing again, not with hope, but with uncertainty. Would this moment lead to transformation, or would it be swept away like the bubbles on the breeze? As the crowd surged around them in a wave of excitement, the answer to her question hung delicately in the air, waiting to be discovered. The crowd murmured, a ripple of confusion and speculation woven through their chatter. Sophie could feel the heat of their gazes, dozens of eyes darting between her and her father, lingering on Andrew's earnest expression. Her heart thudded painfully, a reminder of everything that hung in the balance. "Dad," she whispered, her voice barely escaping her lips, but it was enough to pull her father's eyes back to her. They were stormy, filled with conflict. She longed for something, any sign that he might finally understand. Andrew didn't miss a beat. Sensing the critical juncture, he pressed on. "You have to let her express herself. This isn't just about whims or childhood fantasy. Sophie sees the world differently. She is capable of so much, but only if you give her a chance." Sophie wanted to shout, to let the crowd see her. She wanted her father to hear. "I can do more than you think. I just need you to believe in me." But the words clung to her throat in a painful knot. Instead, she tightened her grip on Jamie, seeking solace in her friend's unwavering support. "I'm not sure what you're expecting, Andrew," her father finally replied, hesitating like he was stepping onto treacherous ground. "How can I believe in something I don't understand?" Andrew stepped even closer, his intense gaze boring into her father's. "That's the first step, Mr. Henderson. Understanding." He gestured toward Sophie, who was standing there as if in a spotlight, vulnerable yet vibrant in her own right. "Look how the bubbles dance when they're free. Your daughter is full of light, but that can be dimmed by fear. Don't let that fear cloud your vision." Sophie felt the emotion swelling within her as she searched her father's face for a breakthrough. There was a flicker there, just a breath of recognition. But then, it was gone, swallowed by the shadow of doubt. Surely he felt it too, the tug of possibility that hung in the air like a tantalizing promise. Just then, a nearby child ran up, a bubble wand in hand, swinging it wildly. Sophie watched as the bubbles sailed off in all directions, catching the sunlight and refracting it into a million colors. She could almost hear them whispering secrets. Would she be able to explore her own colors? Or would they be forever trapped within her? Just look at them. Look at how they fly. Andrew urged her father. Sophie is just like those bubbles. Give her permission to soar. The crowd was still, the only sounds were the soft rustle of leaves and the distant laughter of children. Time stretched painfully. It felt as if they were all on the edge of something monumental. Sophie took a step forward, her voice finally bubbling up. Dad, please, I love creating things. I want to share my world with you. Her father's eyes softened momentarily, and Sophie dared to hope. But just as quickly, tension returned, and he recoiled slightly as if struck. I need time, he stammered, the crack in his armor faltering. Andrew's face reflected a mix of frustration and compassion, but before he could respond, the gust of wind picked up again, forcing more bubbles into the sky, twirling and breaking apart as they scattered toward the horizon. Sophie's heart sank. Everything seemed as fleeting as those bubbles, and this moment might slip away just like them. Would she be left floating aimlessly, her dreams fragmented? Wait! Andrew called suddenly, turning back to the crowd, his voice rising above the din. What if we could show him? What if he could see, just for a moment, what Sophie is capable of? The crowd perked up, intrigued. Eyes widened with curiosity and excitement, and the energy shifted once again. Sophie felt a spark igniting within her. What do you mean? Her father asked warily, fear threading through his words. Andrew smiled, a glimmer of hope lighting up his face. I'll show you. Sophie felt a sudden rush of anticipation. What would come next? What revelation was waiting to unfold? The air buzzed with expectation as Andrew turned to Sophie. Would you like to lead us? He asked, his request ringing through the crowd like a bell tolling a new era. Sophie's heart thundered in her chest, every beat echoing her mixed feelings. But beneath the fear was an undeniable flicker of excitement, a chance to finally shine. Okay, she whispered, her voice steady yet small. Jamie squeezed her hand. You can do this, Soph. With newfound determination, she stepped forward. The crowd parted, their faces filled with anticipation. Sophie felt every gaze on her, yet this time she drew strength from their support instead of fear. Everyone, let us create some magic together. Sophie called, her voice vibrant and alive. As she took a deep breath, she demonstrated the bubble-blowing techniques Jamie had taught her, swirling her wand, letting the bubbles erupt into the air like stars scattering across a night sky. Just remember, bubbles are about fun, freedom, and sharing joy. The crowd erupted into action, eager to mimic her movements. Laughter bubbled up as they joined her, each person down on one knee or standing tall, catching it all. Sophie glanced back toward her father, who remained standing, a somber figure at the edge of the magic. Her heart twinged with hope and fear all at once. Watch, Dad! She cried out, her spirit soaring. Just look! Bubbles floated, each one a tiny universe filled with dreams and laughter. Whispers of joy rose up from every corner of the park, and for a moment, time itself felt suspended in the beauty of the moment. Then, something shifted. The edges of her father's stern expression softened, his defenses wavering like the bubbles themselves, fragile, yet so full of wonder. See how they dance. Andrew chimed in softly, his voice weaving through the gathering air. Sophie can bring joy to the world if you let her fly. Sophie noticed a slight glimmer in her father's eyes. He hesitated, clenching and unclenching his fists. They're just bubbles, he murmured, but the doubt carried less bite now. As Sophie continued, more bubbles floated away, glistening under the sunlight, reflecting the hope shared by all. That's where you're wrong, she said, summoning every ounce of courage. They mean so much more. They remind us to dream. To express ourselves. The crowd erupted with cheers and applause, and Sophie felt her heart swell as familiar warmth spread within her. Let her be who she is. A voice rang out from among the crowd, joined in chorus by others echoing that sentiment. Let her show you what happiness is. Sophie's father shifted on his feet, taking a hesitant step forward, drawn in by the collective energy. The walls he held up were beginning to crumble, bit by bit, washed away by the laughter and love flooding the park. The bubble wands in the air seemed like magic wands, convincing him to believe in the beauty around them. Sophie stepped closer toward him. "Dad, please. Let us create bubbles together. You can join in the fun. Just for one moment." As if drawn to her contagious enthusiasm, he finally approached her, hesitantly taking a bubble wand offered by a stranger nearby. The crowd hushed in anticipation, breath caught in her throat. Sophie watched her father hold the wand, his fingers trembling. He dipped it into the soapy mixture, uncertainty etched on his brow, but a spark of curiosity flickered in his eyes, a budding realization creeping into his heart. "Just blow," she encouraged gently. "Let it go." With a deep breath, he followed her cue, huffing into the wand. He exhaled, tiny bubbles released, floating high into the brilliant sky, shimmering in hues of pink, blue, and purple. Gasps echoed from the crowd, and an eruption of laughter followed. Sophie's heart soared as she witnessed transformation unfold. Her father was taking his first steps into a world filled with the light and joy she had always hoped he would see. "That's it." Andrew cheered. "Let them take flight." As if possessed by newfound magic, more bubbles flowed from her father's wand. It was mesmerizing. Sophie felt tears bubbling in her eyes, tears of joy that sparkled with the vibrancy around them. "You did it, Dad!" she exclaimed, exhilarated, and then, something spectacular happened. Sophie's father turned to her, his expression free from judgment. I never understood," he faltered, emotion thickening his voice. "You always felt so far from me, Sophie. But maybe I was the one who needed to see it's okay." She hugged him tightly, feeling warmth blossom like the flowers in spring. "We can figure this out, together. I just need you to believe in me." Rows of bubbles floated higher, rising with every spark of joy exchanged between them. The crowd erupted into applause, a testament to the victory of love and acceptance. Jamie stood back, watching proudly as the world around them transformed, laughter ringing out, filling the park with hope. In that golden afternoon, amidst laughter, teary eyes, and dancing bubbles, something shifted irrevocably. Hearts had been opened, friendships had been solidified, and the bonds of family rekindled. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the promise of a new beginning glowed in its descent. It was time to cherish the little things, to embrace the magic in friendship, and to allow dreams to float freely like bubbles rising into the evening sky. So, what are you waiting for? You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next moving stories that change hearts and lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and be a part of this growing community. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this wonderful ending. We'd love to hear from you, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the love.